Ahmed was a sensitive young man who deeply felt the emotions of others. The most important person in his life was his mother, the most precious being in his world. He had lost his father in childhood, and since then he had become even closer to his mother. She was his mother, his father, and the center of his entire world. But a fear always lurked inside him, the fear that if he ever lost her, what would happen to him? His fear had been with him since childhood. But as he grew older, it turned into a constant anxiety. He would often stay awake at night, imagining how he would survive if he were left alone in the world. Whenever he saw his mother even slightly unwell, his heart would sink. He felt as if a great storm was about to hit his life. At university, his best friend was Sarah, a cheerful and lively girl. She always tried to make Ahmed focus on the brighter side of life. She would often say, "Living in the grief of the past and the fear of the future is meaningless. Ahmed, the only time we truly have is now, and we should live it to the fullest." But for Ahmed, it was easier said than done. Escaping his fear was not so simple. One day in class, Professor Zahid asked a question. If you knew that the most precious person in your life would leave you someday, what would you do? This question struck Ahmed like a dagger to his heart. He lowered his eyes while the rest of the students started answering. Some said they would spend more time with that person. Others said they would try to keep them happy at all costs. But for Ahmed, this was not just a hypothetical question. It was a reality he was living with every day. The professor smiled and said, "We all know that whoever comes into this world must leave one day. But the real point is that we should not ruin our moments of love by living in the fear of separation. If we constantly think about losing someone, we will never truly be able to live with them." These words touched Ahmed deeply, but the fear inside him remained as strong as ever. One day when he returned home from university, he found his mother lying in bed, looking weaker than usual. He rushed to her side, but she smiled and said, "Son, I am fine, just feeling a little weak." However, Ahmed felt an earthquake in his heart. He immediately called the doctor, who came and examined her. The doctor reassured him that there was nothing serious but advised some medical tests. That night, Ahmed couldn't sleep. He sat outside his mother's room, his mind flooded with terrifying thoughts. What if something happens? What will I do? Where will I go? These questions shattered him from within. The next day, the test results arrived. The doctor informed him that his mother had a minor illness which could be treated. Ahmed sighed in relief, but this incident had intensified his fears even more. After that day, he tried to stay close to his mother at all times. He helped her with everything and did not want to leave her alone for even a moment. One day, his mother held his hand and said, "Son, I will not always be with you, but you must learn to be strong in my absence." In life, everyone has to part with their loved ones someday, but that does not mean we should stop living our happiness. These words felt like arrows piercing Ahmed's heart. He wanted to understand them, but his heart was not ready to accept them. He just kept praying that his mother would always stay with him. A few days later, Ahmed went to talk to Professor Zahid. He said, "Sir, I don't know how to overcome this fear. Ever I imagine life without my mother, my heart sinks." The professor looked at him deeply and said, "You must understand the greatest lesson of life. Love does not mean imprisoning someone, but rather cherishing every moment with them. Spend time with your mother, serve her, and keep her happy. But don't live in the fear of losing her, or you will lose her even before she is gone." These words changed Ahmed's life. Slowly, he began to accept the reality that he could not keep his mother with him forever, but he could make every moment with her memorable. He started spending more time with her, listening to her stories, and engraving her words into his heart. Now he still cared about her health, but he no longer lived in the constant fear of what would happen if she were gone. Time passed and Ahmed learned that true happiness is not in fearing the future, but in living the present. And he told Sarah, "You were right. Life should be lived in the present moment." She smiled and said, "I told you so." Separation comes in life, but love remains forever. Ahmed had finally learned that real life begins when one steps beyond fear.